Welcome back everyone to Hidden History Stories. In today's episode, we're stepping into the golden sands of ancient Egypt to uncover the reign of a woman who defied tradition and claimed the throne of the pharaohs. This is the untold story of Hatshepsut, the ruler whose name they tried to chisel from stone and erase from history. Every story from the past carries a lesson, and this one shows how vision and courage can outlast even the mightiest attempts at silence. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share it with anyone who loves discovering the secrets of the past. And tell me in the comments, if you could meet any ancient ruler face to face, who would it be? Your support keeps these forgotten stories alive. Now, let's begin. The morning sun cast long shadows across the limestone steps of Karnak Temple as a young woman stood before the towering obelisks, her hands trembling slightly as she held the double crown of Egypt. The year was 1479 BCE, and Hatshepsut, daughter of Thutmose I, was about to make a decision that would reshape the ancient world forever. Hatshepsut had never intended to become pharaoh. Born into the royal family during Egypt's 18th dynasty, she was raised with the finest education available in the ancient world. She learned to read hieroglyphs, studied mathematics, astronomy, and statecraft alongside her half-brother Thutmose II. When her father died, she married her half-brother according to royal tradition, becoming queen consort when he ascended to the throne. But fate had different plans. Thutmose II ruled for only a few short years before illness claimed his life, leaving behind a young son, Thutmose III, born to a minor wife named Isis. The boy was barely old enough to hold a reed pen, let alone rule the most powerful empire in the known world. As the boy's stepmother and the primary royal wife of the deceased pharaoh, Hatshepsut initially served as regent. She had done this before during her husband's occasional illnesses, managing the complex bureaucracy that kept Egypt's vast territories functioning smoothly. She knew every governor, every high priest, every military commander. They respected her intelligence and trusted her judgment. For the first 2 years of young Thutmose III's reign, Hatshepsut governed from behind the scenes. She appeared in temple relief standing behind the boy pharaoh, her hands protectively placed on his shoulders. But as months passed, something remarkable began to happen. In newer carvings and paintings, Hatshepsut appeared larger, more prominent. Her regalia became more elaborate. The turning point came during a crisis with Nubian gold mines. Bandits had been attacking mining expeditions, threatening Egypt's primary source of wealth. Military advisors called for immediate armed intervention, but Hatshepsut proposed a different approach. She organized a diplomatic mission, offering the bandit leaders positions as regional administrators in exchange for protecting the mines. The strategy worked brilliantly, securing Egypt's gold supply without losing a single soldier. This success emboldened Hatshepsut. In temple inscriptions from this period, she began referring to herself using masculine grammatical forms, as was required for pharaonic titles. Artists depicted her wearing the traditional false beard of kingship, though they carefully maintained her feminine features underneath. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs ruled not merely as political leaders, but as living gods, the earthly embodiment of Horus. For a woman to claim such divine authority was unprecedented, so Hatshepsut crafted an ingenious narrative of legitimacy. She commissioned elaborate scenes on temple walls showing her divine conception and birth. In these reliefs, the god Amun-Ra himself chose her to rule Egypt before she was even born. She claimed that her deceased father, Thutmose I, had publicly designated her as his heir during a festival ceremony, though no contemporary records confirm this event. Most remarkably, she developed the story of her coronation by Amun-Ra at Karnak Temple. According to these accounts, during a religious procession, the god's portable shrine moved on its own toward Hatshepsut, selecting her from among all the assembled nobles and priests. Whether the priests carrying the shrine were instructed to make this happen remains a mystery, but the symbolism was powerful and convincing to the Egyptian people. Once her authority was established, Hatshepsut proved to be one of Egypt's most effective rulers. Unlike many pharaohs who focused primarily on military conquests, she prioritized trade, construction, and internal development. Egypt during her reign became incredibly wealthy and culturally sophisticated. Her greatest achievement was the famous expedition to Punt, a mysterious land somewhere along the Red Sea coast, possibly modern-day Somalia or Yemen. No pharaoh had successfully reached Punt in generations, but Hatshepsut organized a massive expedition of 5 ships carrying 210 men. They returned with unprecedented treasures: ivory, gold, ebony, animal skins, live animals including baboons and leopards, and most importantly, 31 living myrrh trees. These myrrh trees were transplanted to Egypt and grew successfully, providing the precious incense needed for temple ceremonies without expensive imports. Hatshepsut's building projects rivaled those of any pharaoh in Egyptian history. Her masterpiece was the magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, a revolutionary design that seemed to grow organically from the limestone cliffs. Unlike traditional Egyptian temples with their massive pylons and enclosed courtyards, her temple featured terrace levels connected by long ramps with gardens and pools integrated into the architecture. She erected more obelisks than any pharaoh except Ramesses II, including 2 massive granite monuments at Karnak Temple. Each obelisk required months of careful quarrying in Aswan, then an incredible journey down the Nile on specially constructed barges. The precision required to quarry, transport, and erect these monuments, some weighing over 300 tons, demonstrates the advanced engineering capabilities of her reign. In Thebes, she expanded Karnak Temple with a series of chapels and halls. Her Red Chapel, built from red quartzite, was considered one of the most beautiful structures in ancient Egypt. She also initiated restoration projects at temples throughout the kingdom, reviving monuments that had fallen into disrepair during periods of political instability. Throughout her reign, young Thutmose III remained at court, receiving the education befitting a future pharaoh. Contrary to later propaganda suggesting conflict between them, contemporary evidence suggests a more complex relationship. In some reliefs, both appear together performing royal duties, with Hatshepsut as the senior pharaoh and Thutmose III as her junior partner. Thutmose III received military training and even led some expeditions under Hatshepsut's oversight. She seemed to be grooming him for eventual sole rule while maintaining her own supreme authority. Some historians suggest she viewed their relationship as similar to the traditional co-regencies between father and son that were common in Egyptian royal tradition. Around 1458 BCE, after ruling Egypt for approximately 22 years, Hatshepsut disappears from historical records. The circumstances of her death remain one of ancient Egypt's greatest mysteries. Ancient Egyptian tomb chamber with empty sarcophagus, canopic jars, funeral goods, and mysterious shadows cast by flickering torchlight. Some evidence suggests she may have died of diabetes or bone cancer, based on analysis of a tooth believed to belong to her mummy. Others theorize that she voluntarily stepped down, allowing Thutmose III to assume full pharaonic authority as she aged. The smooth transition of power suggests no violent overthrow occurred. Years later, during the latter part of Thutmose III's reign, a systematic campaign began to remove Hatshepsut's name and image from monuments throughout Egypt. Her cartouches were chiseled out and replaced with those of Thutmose I, Thutmose II, or Thutmose III. Statues were broken and buried. Relief scenes were recarved to remove her figure. This erasure was likely not motivated by personal animosity, but by political necessity. Later pharaohs needed to restore the traditional narrative of male succession. A successful female pharaoh created an uncomfortable precedent that could inspire future challenges to male authority. The erasure campaign was so thorough that Hatshepsut was largely forgotten until modern archaeologists began uncovering her monuments. For over 3,000 years, Hatshepsut remained a shadowy figure known only from fragments of inscriptions and broken statues. The systematic ancient erasure of her records was remarkably effective. Early Egyptologists in the 19th century occasionally encountered her name but couldn't understand her historical significance. The breakthrough came in 1903 when archaeologist Howard Carter discovered her intact tomb in the Valley of the Kings, though grave robbers had long since removed her mummy. Throughout the 20th century, archaeologists gradually pieced together her story from temple reliefs, ostraca, ancient writing tablets, and administrative papyri. Each new discovery revealed more about this remarkable woman who had ruled Egypt during one of its most prosperous periods. Modern analysis of her building projects, trade expeditions, and administrative records reveals a pharaoh whose achievements rivaled the greatest rulers in Egyptian history. Hatshepsut's reign represents one of the longest periods of peace and prosperity in ancient Egyptian history. No major wars occurred during her rule, yet Egypt's influence expanded through trade and diplomacy. Her architectural innovations influenced Egyptian building techniques for centuries. The wealth accumulated during her reign funded the military campaigns of her successors, including Thutmose III's famous victories that established Egypt as the ancient world's dominant superpower. Perhaps most remarkably, she achieved all this in a society that had never accepted female pharaonic rule before her time and would rarely do so again. Through intelligence, political skill, and careful cultivation of legitimacy, she transformed herself from queen regent to divine pharaoh and ruled successfully for over 2 decades. Her story demonstrates that even in ancient times, exceptional individuals could transcend the limitations of their era through determination, intelligence, and skillful leadership. Though later rulers tried to erase her from history, the monuments she built and the prosperity she created speak to achievements that no amount of political revision could truly destroy. Today, as archaeologists continue uncovering evidence of her reign, Hatshepsut emerges not as an anomaly or usurper, but as one of ancient Egypt's most capable and successful pharaohs, whose gender made her accomplishments not less significant, but infinitely more remarkable. Her story is more than ancient history. It is a reminder that true leadership is defined not by convention, but by vision, courage, and the will to challenge what others believe is impossible. That was the story of Hatshepsut, the pharaoh they tried to erase, yet whose legacy still towers over the sands of Egypt. If you found her reign as fascinating as we did, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss more hidden history stories.